Round here, them guns get the last word.
Before we start this video, I want to take a moment of silence for a recent tragedy that occurred. In loving memory of Battlefield 2002 to 2021, ruined and desecrated by greed. So many video game franchises are being ruined by greed. Battlefield is one. Hopefully the fighting game genre doesn't also fall down this dark road, but let's take a moment of silence for this one. Truly, truly sad time for all the gamers out there. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a major shift that is happening inside of the gaming industry. Now, the gaming industry has been changing very, very rapidly over the past couple of years. It's quite fascinating, actually. First off, you had the introduction of YouTube, which people were doing Let's Plays, people were doing tutorials, people were, sharing content. And then you had this sort of big drive where Twitch started to explode. So now Twitch is a big part of the gaming industry and Twitch is a big part of the genre. Then you had this whole loot box situation happening 2-3 years ago. Then you had the Game Pass, you had the Battle Royales popping up. The gaming industry is changing so fast. It's kind of astonishing how many phases it's going through. Like the Battle Royale genre, it feels like it's been here for a long time, but it's really only been 3-4 years maybe. It's really changing rapidly. And today we have another huge shift. Huge. Now, when you talk about Tekken 7 and you talk about Tekken 8, mostly Tekken 7, Tekken 7 released on arcades first. Now, I remember this very, very vividly. Back in 2014, Tekken 7 released, and it was Tekken 7 Faded Retribution. I think it had a few different names, but Faded Retribution was the big one. It released on arcades. I actually played Faded Retribution. There's a mall that has a arcade bowling alley attached on the side, and I played it there 2 times before it actually released. I was able to experience Yoshimitsu, and of course it wasn't the best experience because there's kids running around and you can't really focus and you can't really play a lot, but I did get to play it in arcades, so I did get to experience that. But that was kind of a horrible thing to experience, right? You watch on YouTube, Nii and all the Japanese and Korean players, they're playing it on arcades, they're mastering the game, and then 2 years later, it finally releases on console and PC for the rest of the world to, play. Now, if we just talk about what that was like, that first year, second year of Tekken being out globally, everyone was at a huge disadvantage because of how much more time Japanese and Korean players had to just experience the game. They had 2 years head start on all of us, and it wasn't until around season 2, season 3 when American players and EU players like Super Akuma, right, Lil Majin started to catch up, right? So that's one big issue with having it released on arcades first, is because they will get so much. People who have arcade access will get so much of a head start over those who don't. That's one issue. But two, you talk about everything just changed. The whole world is different now. When they release, people want to stream it on Twitch. They want to watch it on YouTube. They want to play it themselves, right? You can't put these games in arcades anymore. And the whole community, the Tekken community, we all wonder, will they release Tekken 8 on arcade first?
It's not possible. It can't happen. It's no way. It's just not possible. For me, trying to put myself in a world where they say Tekken 8's coming out to arcades on this date in a trailer, nah. It's not.
Because they can still release it on arcades, but it has to be simultaneously with PC, consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, right? So let's look at this news article. I think this news article is going to give us a really big indication as to what is going to happen. The news article says, from Eurogamer, Sega quits Japanese arcades business after 50 years. Gone fast, it says. This is huge. This is huge. Aris and Rip was talking about whether or not Tekken 8 would release on arcades first, and Aris brought up a really good point. He was saying how maybe it could release on arcade first because maybe Bandai Namco or Harada, they have some sort of agreement with the arcade industry. I think those kind of agreements do exist because, these games are about money. And if someone is willing to pay enough money, they can get that exclusive, 6 months, a year, whatever they want. Everything has a price, But at this point in time, I don't think it's worth it for arcades to pay that price. Let's continue reading. It says, after more than 50 years, Sega has pulled out of the Japanese arcade business. All of the company remaining arcades will be sold to an arcade company, Jinda, which operates locations under the Jigo brand. Sega has signaled the move back in 2020, which, as you might expect, was particularly poor year for arcade revenue. But then it shifted 85% of its arcades to Jinda. Now it has offloaded the rest. So in 2020, of course, when the pandemic hit, Sega was like, we don't know if we're going to be able to survive this. The arcade industry is tanking. We know that just as a whole. There's no way an arcade can survive in the midst of a pandemic. They offloaded 80% of their shares, and just now they offloaded the last 15%. Now this next part is very, very important. I want you guys to really pay attention to this next paragraph. It says, of course, this is part of a much longer trend away from arcades towards gaming at home. A trend Japan has resisted for longer than many other countries. Over the years, countless arcade locations have shuttered. In 2021, Namco Funscape London finally closed its doors after 25 years. I hate to say it, but they finally are moving away from arcades. The arcade industry has been dwindling ever since, but the pandemic really was like the nail in the coffin, and that really is what pushed them to focus on gaming at home, right? Consoles, PC, no more arcade shenanigans. Now the focus is gaming at home. And with that in mind, you have to imagine all of the developers also are paying attention to that. They will not be putting Tekken 8 exclusively on arcades for 2 years, 6 months, whatever, because that's not the focus anymore. Even if there is some sort of contract, maybe they could have had a contract like that with Sega. I'm pretty sure if Sega is selling all of their assets, they're also going to get rid of all of that other stuff that has to do with that, right? There's no reason to say, yeah, you still have to put this game on arcades if you're no longer in that business, right? So I don't think Tekken 8 will be on arcades. First, it may release simultaneously. I think it should. If there's people out there who still play arcades, who still, have an arcade that's open or something, yeah, release it at the same time so those people can still play the game. Those businesses can stay open. They can still run. Everyone can be happy. That's the main thing that I want to focus on. Everyone just has to be able to play at the same time. Everyone has to be able to have the same competitive start. No one gets a head start. No one gets an early go. That's really what's important, because we saw what happened in Tekken 7. Japan and Korea had a major head start, and it literally took the rest of the world a year or two to catch up. And I think a big reason that we were able to catch up is because of things like YouTube, Twitch, and also how big esports has grown. We were able to study, watch, learn, lab, practice, and compete. So I don't know. This is just a very interesting news article here. I think this is a major shift, and this gives us a pretty good indication for what will happen with Tekken 8. And this, I have no more doubts in my mind. Yes, I had some doubts before. I didn't know if Japan or if Bandai Namco really would push it towards arcades. But this right here tells me there's no shot. No shot. The final screenshot I want to read, it says, Sega leaves the arcade business for good. Company sells its remaining arcade, which will be renamed Jigo. I have the screenshot of the Jigo CEO's tweet. I have the translation if you guys want to pause and read that, but it's not really important to the Tekken 8 discussion, but I still want to show it just in case you guys are interested in seeing what the arcade future will look like, But that's going to be it. That's everything that I really have to say. I think this is a clear indicator of what's to come, Tekken 8, we don't have to worry about arcades. We don't have to worry about any of those shenanigans. And here's the thing too, something else before I end the video. Even though it released on arcades first, arcades did kind of act as a beta. So you have to wonder, will they do sort of a beta phase on console and PC now? Or will they just release the game and then they will just patch it as it goes? Because Tekken 7 Fated Retribution and Tekken 7 are really, really different. Like one is a beta and one is a complete game. So you do have to wonder, how will that happen now? Will they do a Tekken 8 Fated Retribution or whatever? Or will it just be straight Tekken 8, patch it, if there's any glitches, buff it, fix it, nerf it, hack it, ban people, whatever. I don't know. It's just a lot to think about, but I think this is good news. It may not be good news for people who are a fan of Sony and whatnot, but for Tekken fans, this is good news. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.